When I saw the sales tally for the automakers in July of 2025, I was blown away by Hyundai. All-time sales record for the month of July with a 15% increase. But it was Toyota that really blew me away. And I will make a video on Hyundai. I will get to them soon. I got a lot of cars to review, not a lot of time, but I will get to it, I promise. But Toyota, however, this one was tough because Toyota doesn't report monthly. All right. They don't have a press release to say, hey, this is what cars did well. Here's which ones are not doing well. Here's, all right, where Hyundai, Kia, Honda, and Mazda and Subaru all post monthly. So I had to dust off my old Toyota contacts and get to the heart of the matter. And look at what happened. Look at these juicy numbers that we have. Not only do we have this cool summary that I will be getting monthly now, not just this month, but every single month going forward, I have a spreadsheet of sales per model. Guys, grab your snacks and drinks, buckle in. What is Toyota doing to be up about 20% versus last year? Here's a fun fact. Year-to-date electrified sales, which includes EVs, hybrids, almost 50%. We're at 48.4% of total sales volume. Just wait, because when the RAV4 goes fully hybrid, we'll be at closer to 60% of total sales volume from Toyota as electrified. Most of them, of course, being hybrids. Toyota dealers also outperformed their objective by 13.8%. Every single region, there are 12 different regions for Toyota, achieved their new vehicle objective. They all outsold the prior month, meaning June, and they all outsold July of 2024. That one was easy to do because July of 2024 CDK went down. Also, we had an extra selling day in 2025. July versus 2024. I'm going to start getting into this major spreadsheet that you see for July of 2025. We're going to break down individual models here, how they're doing, are they healthy, what's holding Toyota back, because believe it or not, if Toyota had the inventory and the production capacity, I think they could be actually doing better than what we saw, more than a 20% jump. So if you look here, Toyota themselves up 22%, Lexus only up 9%. So we have a combined total of just under 20%. Overall this year, Toyota is up 6.3% when you combine Toyota and Lexus. Lexus actually 7% up year to date. That's mind blowing because last year in 2024, they broke their all-time sales record. And right now, as far as I'm aware, they're leading the luxury race, something they haven't done since maybe 10 years ago in 2015. They are leading BMW in total sales volume. All right, so let's start with Toyota Corolla. On a volume percentage, it was actually up. All right, so Corolla is just kind of floating. It's coasting. When we looked at Honda last week, Honda Civic was slightly down, its chief rival, but pretty much coasting for the Civic as well. So the Corolla is only down 1.2%. Check out my Corolla LE review this past couple weeks. And this week I have a Camry LE, which love that car to pieces. Supra, well, Supra's canceled, so they're just kind of, selling what they have left at this point. GR86 up 4% on a volume percentage and down 23% this year. The BRZ's down from the Subaru end as well, which is the same vehicle built in the same plant in Japan. Mirai, whatever, fuel cell. Crown, well, here's the thing. Crown's suffering, and the reason I would say is because the Crown Signia exists, which wasn't available the entirety of 2024, the Crown Signia. All right, I want to say it came out in the summer of 2024. So we go back down to Crown Signia here. Look how much the Crown Signia is selling compared to the standard Crown. If we look here, it's at more than double. Crown Signia has sold closer to 14,000 units and Crown Standard has sold closer to 6,000 units. The Crown Signia is a more desirable vehicle. It's a more handsome vehicle. It's a wagon. It's just awesome. And the Standard Crown, well, it's kind of a replacement for the Avalon, but not as practical in some ways. The Hybrid Max on it is pretty cool. It's one of two Toyota vehicles that has that Hybrid Max powertrain with the 2.4 hybrid. That gets you 340 horsepower in the Crown, and then it provides about 360 or so horsepower in the Grand Highlander. All right, Prius. Why is the Prius up 243% for the month of July? Well, last year it was on stop sale because of the recalls. All right, there was some door recalls on it, and yeah, they had a stop sale. So it's up 240 some percent, and it's up 130% on the year. All right, so the Prius volume's coming back slowly. If we look at it compared to its sales versus the Corolla at 140,000 or the Camry 181,000, it's just a small piece of Toyota's puzzle. All right, and I'm reviewing the Camry LE this week again. The Camry LE, or should I say the Camry fully hybrid now is up 7.2%. That's insane. All right. That's for the month. It's only up 1% for the year though. But the Camry's heading in the right direction. Camry's built in Kentucky. And it will, once the ES, here's the thing, once the ES leaves, we might have more production capacity for the Camry. Camry could be running off of 2 lines. If for sure line 3 is the ES, or the ES is made, once that goes back to Japan late this year, early next year, then the Camry could get more production, which is pretty interesting. All right, moving on to Lexus. IS up 4% on the month, down 2% on the year. Is this kind of coasting? There's nothing really new for it other than a couple of special editions here and there. Like the Ultimate Edition on the IS 500, but that's not a volume seller. RC, it's essentially discontinued. Minus 17% on the year, minus 36% on the month. Rest in peace, RC. Coupe. I mean, luckily the LC's still around. They got the green light for another year, maybe 2. We'll see what happens with the LFR and what Lexus decides to do with the LC. I think the LC should be continued on as long as possible. Now that emissions regulations are gone, it shouldn't be too hard. ES, down 7%. Well, the ES is getting that big redesign early next year. You know, Lexus Sedan's just not doing well. The LS is a joke. It's been a joke for a long time. I would say since the introduction of this generation, the departure of the V8, the LS has never come close to how special it was in its first, second, and third generations, all the way to LS 430 was peak LS. Then LS 460 was maybe not as quite good as a 430, and then the 500 that we have now is not even close. But it's also a different market, a market where flagship sedans is not that desirable from a consumer standpoint. It's flagship SUVs, and Lexus doesn't even have a flagship SUV, so it's pretty frustrating. You could say the LX is a flagship, but it's kind of its own thing. LC 500 down 25%. That's not good. But again, they canceled the hybrid on it, which is fine. It's not like the hybrid sold anyways, as you'll see right here. LC hybrid, they sold 0 in the month of July. They've only sold 7 this year. So yeah, LC hybrid, no one's going to remember you except as a, like the ugly stepsister of the V8 LC 500. BZ4X, we're getting into Toyota's crossovers now. Massive sales growth. Well, it's still labeled as the BZ4X. I'm curious, is the BZ non-4X available yet? I mean, there's only 23 BZ4Xs in my area. I don't see the 2026 models here yet. And Toyota's probably in no rush to bring those new BZ refreshes to the market. And most of the BZs, for example, if I put on like a different zip code here, actually there's still none in California either. That is bonkers. There's just no BZ4Xs out there, which, I mean, that's interesting. Maybe they're getting ready for the refresh. RAV4, maybe they had also some crazy lease deals on it to clear inventory before the new one comes. Also, while you can still get the EV tax credit. Otherwise, there's hardly any available out there. RAV4, oh my gosh. RAV4 is up 12% for the month, as a new one will be here before the end of the year. I will be driving it this fall, so stay tuned for those driving impressions. Minus 6 or 1.6% on the year, but Guys, the RAV4 had a best year ever last year, sold like 475,000. If they keep this pace up, then it could beat their all-time sales record. But I'm going to pump the brakes there, because anytime you switch over to a new model or completely redesigned, especially in this circumstance, sales will probably drop in October, November, December for the RAV4 before they can get production up to the same speed as a previous generation. Since it is still on the same K platform, it shouldn't require that much of a retooling or anything like that. They will be using a new generation of hybrid, but that shouldn't be any more complex than what they're doing now. So it'll be fun to see how well Toyota manages this. I've heard that the RAV4 might only be down a week or two with the production stoppage from this generation to the next generation. So if they're able to do it extraordinarily smooth, then we might be close to another record-breaking year for the RAV4. With two generations available within that year is just insane. Corolla Cross, guys, just look at the low volume here on this vehicle. It has only sold about 60,000 units this year, and we're about 70% through the year. So if I do 60,000 divided by 7 months, we're about 8,500 per month times 12, 102,000. So the production volume keeps getting higher on this Corolla Cross, but the max production capacity for Toyota at the Alabama plant's 150,000. So they're still about 50,000 units short of max production. And I believe, especially if they're all hybrids, Toyota would have no problem selling those excess or additional Corolla Crosses if they were available. So if I type in Corolla Cross here, there is only 157 Corolla Crosses available. As if you look at the Corolla, there's almost 1,000. All right, there's much more demand for the Corolla Cross than there is the Corolla, but the Corolla being cheaper and more widely available, you're going to be able to get much better deals. I don't like the Corolla Cross, though. The Corolla Cross Hybrid is a good buy, but the standard one with the CVT is an atrocious powertrain. And the Corolla Cross Hybrid, though, is the only way to get it. But you can see here, well, and there's actually a $1,000 price drop here on the Nightshade Corolla Cross, which I think I just saw one recently, which it looked pretty cool in person. So that's a good deal. But once you spend too much over $30,000 on a Corolla Cross, well, then you could be looking at a RAV4 hybrid. And look, that's $32,000. So you get a more powerful hybrid, equally as efficient with more space. And it might not have as much features as an upper level Corolla Cross, but it's overall a better vehicle, more spacious vehicle than the Corolla Cross, which is a bit compromised, especially in that second row for a compact crossover, or should I say subcompact? Technically, a RAV4 is compact, but it used to be compact. The first few generations of RAV4 essentially is what the Corolla Cross's size is now. So the Corolla Cross, it has a lot of room to grow still, and Toyota's probably just slowly ramping up that production out of that plant in Alabama. Crown Signia. Again, revisiting this vehicle, it's outselling the standard Crown Sedan, not the real Crown Sedan, the rear-wheel drive one that's available in Japan. That's kind of like a Lexus GS sort of vehicle. No, the liftback looking Crown that we have, that's not a real liftback. Of course, the Crown Signia is going to be outselling it 2-1. Venza, rest in peace. They sold 4 of them last month. My neighbor has a Venza, and it's a beautiful, beautiful car. Love the Harrier. Highlander. Well, it keeps dying. And the Highlander will move to Kentucky as an EV, hopefully as more than just an EV, maybe a plug-in hybrid as well, because we don't need a ton of 3-row EVs on the market. Kia and Hyundai have fantastic 3-row EVs. They're not selling. They're too expensive. And now that the tax credits are going to be disappearing, there's going to be even less demand for a 3-row EV. So Highlander, it's in a weird spot right now. Toyota's even delayed the Highlander EV out of the plant in Kentucky, not due to anything other than probably demand at this point. So Grand Highlander, this is the vehicle that the market's wanting for a 3-row crossover, big, spacious, efficient. Yeah, it's just a really solid vehicle. Reviewed it earlier this year, gave it a solid A rating on my ranks, which is my second highest rating. So Grand Highlander, a fantastic vehicle, especially in the hybrids, but those hybrids are hard to find, really difficult to find. There's plenty of turbo models around, but not the hybrids, which is tough because if they were all hybrid, oh man, that would make it awesome. But anyways, I know there's a market for people who don't want hybrids, and that's fine too. All right. Toyota 4Runner, well, it's down massively on the year, down 40% on the year. Why is that? Well, they're still ramping up production versus last year. Like last year when they went to the new redesign, it was really limited production. They're having issues getting production where they wanted it. Now it's essentially where they want it. Look, they outsold last year's July by essentially 100%. So they've doubled up last year's volume for the month of July. The Toyota dealers I've been speaking to, they're saying that the upper trim levels are kind of hard to sell for the 4Runner because they're so expensive now. The entry-level SR5, which I think is the best 4Runner, those dealers are saying that the existing owners of 4Runners, especially SR5 owners, they don't see anything in the new SR5 to convince them to get out of their old 4Runners, so they're having a hard time selling the 4Runner, maybe compared to what they're used to. Now, the 4Runner has sold in the past about 150,000 units per year. If the 4Runner is selling 14,000 units a month, look at that volume. This is incredible. If they're able to keep this up going forward, then the 4Runner is potentially going to be able to sell the old 5th gen 4Runner. As I look back on the sales, they had a peak year in 2021 with 144,000. So this number I don't think is sustainable for the 4Runner, selling almost 15,000 in a single month. And obviously this year, the volume's way down compared to last year. Holy cow, I didn't realize how low that was. I thought this was a 25 figure, but that's a 24 figure. So it's down 40% on the year, and it's doing great now. They finally have figured out the production, and we'll see where it ends by the end of this year, but it's going to be nowhere close to where it could be based off of previous years. So anyways, we'll see if it cracks 100,000. It doesn't look like it's going to this year, which is a big drop in volume for the 4Runner. Sequoia, the Sequoia and Tundra are kind of getting the smallest of refreshes. I wouldn't even call it a refresh. They're getting some different options. I guess like the Capstone gets a different interior, for example, going from that white to a gray interior. But the Sequoia is pretty much production capped out of that plant that shares production with the Tundra in San Antonio. Land Cruiser. This is weird. Okay, we have a 200% rise in Land Cruiser sales this year. Again, which it's the full year on sale, I would say. But if we look at this month, it's down 57%. It's almost like in the Tahara plant, they're lessening production on the Land Cruiser and increased production on the 4Runner. It's really bizarre what's happening. The Sienna, guys, look at this. Toyota, there's years of pent-up demand for the Sienna, a 36 miles per gallon hybrid minivan. If you don't need to run the AC, I saw as high as 47 miles per gallon, and I pump verified it. Like, I still can't believe that. Maybe it was 46 miles. Anyways, it was incredibly high fuel economy. And the Sienna actually, with its 4th gen hybrid powertrain, is a snap. It was actually a bit futuristic for Toyota hybrids. And the reason is because it has a really large hybrid battery. Okay, that's why it's so efficient, because it has more regen capabilities, because you have a larger battery buffer there. So the Sienna and things like the Grand Highlander, they have larger batteries to accommodate the bigger vehicles, and that's how they can get such good fuel economy. But Toyota's hybrids in the future, not plug-in hybrids or e-revs, but their standard hybrids will be using more battery per hybrid to get better fuel economy. So it'll be more and more electrified like the Sienna is right now. All right, but the Sienna can still be improved with efficiency, with the 5th gen hybrid, more efficient motors and whatnot. So the Sienna, it's a good minivan, and it's no more than that. It's not a great minivan. It's not an excellent minivan. The Honda Odyssey is an excellent minivan with poor fuel economy. The Sienna is an okay, good minivan with excellent fuel economy. So it really just depends on what you need. All right. But now there's a Kia Carnival that is also seeing huge sales increases, as well as the Honda Odyssey. So the minivan market is exploding right now. And the Sienna, I mean, look, this volume is a travesty. The Sienna could absolutely be outselling things like the Corolla Cross if the volume was available. And it could be outselling, well, that's about it. I mean, it could be outselling the Tundra too, in my opinion, if the Sienna had the volume. I think the Sienna could be pushing about 15,000 units per month. And you might be saying, Kirk, that's too high. But families are realizing that the Highlander isn't spacious enough for them. And that's why the Grand Highlander sales are so high. But I really think that the Sienna could be even outselling the Grand Highlander in today's market if there was enough production. They've really increased the production this year at the sake of the Highlander sales, and that's okay because the Sienna is a higher ticket item vehicle, and there's far more demand for something like the Sienna and the Grand Highlander than the Highlander. The Highlander, they could stop producing it right now. I don't think anyone would care. The Crown Signia is a 2-row Highlander. If you need a 3-row, go get a Sienna or go get a Grand Highlander. Okay. The standard Highlander is just too compromised for a 3-row crossover, in my opinion. All right. But the Grand Highlander doing well this year because last year, again, it was on stop sale due to safety recalls. Yeah, it's doing great. So yeah, the Sienna is doing great. The Tacoma is blowing me away. The Tacoma is up almost 80% this year. And it is up 42% on the month. They sold 26,000 Tacomas this past month. So if they are able to keep this pace, that's 312,000 Tacomas. Let me look up Tacoma sales history real quick. The Tacoma's best year ever looks like it was in 2019, right before the pandemic, where they sold 248,000. So this monthly number here is just out of this world. But what are they pacing this year? Divided by 7 times 12. 269,000 units, which is an all-time sales record for the Tacoma. They're pacing something that I never thought would be possible. Now, could tariffs get in the way? Well, they don't seem to be getting in the way right now. The Tacoma sales are out of this world, despite it not having a V6 like the old generation. Now, I do think this generation Tacoma is better than the old generation. It handles better. You know, the powertrain drives a lot better. It's much more perky than the old V6, in my opinion. Is it going to be as reliable? Only time will tell. But the new Tacoma, Toyota did something right here. They figured out something with these sales numbers and their pacing, guys. 269,000. That pace is accelerating. That is absolutely mind-blowing that the Tacoma is having this sort of success. I want to look up Sienna sales now, because with the Sienna having such a strong year as well, are they going to break an all-time record? No, there's no way. There's no way the Sienna is going to break an all-time record. The Sienna was printing money from about 2010 to 2017. All right. And they were selling about 120,000 Siennas a year. The peak being 137,000 in 2015. I own a 2013 where they sold 121,000. All right. So if we do the Sienna sales, 60,000 divided by 7 times 12, they're only pacing 102,000, which this is the highest, this will be, without a doubt, the highest volume year for the Sienna since 2021, where they sold 108,000 or so units. All right. Again, I think the demand far outstrips that. I think the demand is probably closer to 150,000 units if they could produce them. Oh, I take a step back. The Sienna actually sold 163,000 units in 2006, 161,000 units in 2005. And I still see all those second-gen Siennas still driving around. I had a 2004 in which they sold 159,000 units that year. So Sienna has I think the demand is back to when it was at its peak in the mid-2000s. That's where minivan demand is right now, except the market is just, they can't build enough minivans because they shifted so much production to crossovers over the last few years that the minivans are still just too high demand, too low production. All right, let's go over the Tundra. Down on the year about 2.6%. They had the twin turbo V6 recall last year, or was it earlier this year? It's hard for me to remember. Tundra up 9% on the month. It's heading in the right direction. So yeah, I mean, there's teasers right now of a Raptor fighter Tundra in development with camouflage. I didn't get to it fast enough, so I didn't make a video on it. So yeah, Toyota is essentially working on a Tundra Raptor. Who knows what they would call it? But in powertrain, who knows? Plug-in hybrid would be my guess. We know Toyota is working on a twin-turbo V8 and that Lexus LFR. That could be a possibility. I think most people would want twin-turbo V8 instead of plug-in hybrid twin-turbo V6. But let's keep moving. Moving on to Lexus crossovers. The UX is rumored to get canceled, actually, in the near future, or at least the fully electric version, which we don't get here. But the UX desperately needs a redesign. The LBX, which is smaller than the UX, but better packaged than the UX, is actually the best-selling Lexus in Europe now, and we don't get it, of course. So down 3% on the year, up 33% on the month. But this sales volume is a joke. It should be selling way more than that. Look, the RZ is even outselling the UX. It tells you how compromised the UX is as a luxury vehicle. Too expensive. And the Prius is a better vehicle. The Corolla Cross is not a better vehicle, but it costs a lot less money. But yeah, the Prius objectively and subjectively is a better vehicle than the Lexus UX. UX costs less money, gets better fuel economy, and looks a hell of a lot better. All right, NX. Up about 10% on the year, up 3.6% on the month. They're probably running into production volume capacity here. All right, but the NX, though, I think we could live in a world where one day the NX overtakes the RX. The RX sales are dropping. And the RX, why are there sales, John? When I looked it up, the RX has plenty of RX 350 turbos available, tons of them. But there's hardly any RX hybrids available. So the RX essentially needs to go fully hybrid, and then its sales will rebound. I guarantee it. Same thing with the NX. There's tons of NX 350s around, but there's actually a decent amount of NX hybrids that are also available on the market right now. So the NX is a cheaper vehicle, but it's sized just right. It's a better looking vehicle than the RX. It's more efficient than the RX. And you can get, besides the 500H, you get the same powertrains as the RX. So as you do on the NX. I love the NX a lot more than the RX. That's just my 2 cents. All right, the TX. Well, remember last year was a stop sale. Actually, what's going on here? Okay, apparently I've never seen a negative sale number, so I can't really explain this, but I can explain last year that TX, like the Grand Highlanders, you see here only 24 sales. It was on stop sale. It was on recall. And so the TX is just printing money for Lexus at this point. This is a vehicle Lexus has needed for a long time. It's not as good as I would like it to be because it's too close to the Grand Highlander for about 10 grand more. So yeah, but it is, people are just going to drink that Lexus Kool-Aid, and the TX is one of those vehicles that are like, oh, it's an actually usable 3-row crossover. Since we don't have the LM minivan for Lexus, which actually there's a market for it in the United States now, that you are seeing the success and the rise of minivan sales and the rise of minivan demand. There's actually a market in the United States finally for the Lexus LM minivan to exist, but the TX maybe is the closest thing that we have right now. So it is what it is. It's up 40% on the year, and it's just going to keep selling at a high clip for the foreseeable future. They need to make more hybrids on it. I think it should be standard hybrid because, well, you can get that fantastic 500H powertrain as a Hybrid Max on the Grand Highlander, and it's a lot cheaper, assuming the Toyota dealership isn't overcharging you or you're overpaying, but that's your choice to do that. Lexus GX, minus 28%. The GX, like the Land Cruiser, is seeing some negative growth. What's going on here? I'm not quite sure. I have no idea what's going. There might be some issues with the J250 quality. That's just a random guess. And maybe they're slowing production to make sure that they get it right. I don't know. Because the GX and the Land Cruiser are built in the same assembly lines, typically, not always, because I think sometimes the Land Cruiser is built at Toyota Auto Body where the GX is at Tahara, but I think they should be both at Tahara now, but I could be wrong. Anyways, we're seeing some sort of production crimpage there for the GX, which is not good for the GX because the demand for the GX is actually really high. I've heard 6 to 12 months minimum waiting list, sometimes up to 2 years waiting list for the GX right now at Lexus dealers. And this is not what Lexus dealers want to see right now, a lack of volume available. So if I look up at Lexus GX in my area, 125, that's not nearly enough to satisfy the market, in my opinion. It's a very, very low volume for the GX. And what do we have for trim levels right now? Some luxuries, a lot of luxury pluses, some overtrail pluses, and not enough volume on the Premium Plus. Premium Plus should be the volume seller here, and there's not enough volume on it. There's more luxury and luxury plus models in the Premium. So interesting. All right, let's get back to the sales sheet here. Lexus LX is seeing some growth. This is good. It finally has the hybrid powertrain that it deserved. It's a much more smoother and refined experience than what you see on the Sequoia, for example. Even though on paper it's the same hybrid powertrain, but you get in the LX and it's absolute butter. Its silence is smooth as hell. It got my Smooth award, but the LX is still an extremely compromised vehicle for a 3-row body-on-frame SUV. There's hardly any space in it for 3 rows of people. There's like no cargo capacity. That's just it's based off the full-size Land Cruiser J300. And it's just, unfortunately, Lexus has never adapted a longer wheelbase and a longer longer like cargo capacity version, like a Escalade ESV, for example. That's what the LX needs, and its sales would go through the roof if Lexus built that, but they don't care to. They're like, we'll just give them the TX. That's close enough. But I'm telling you, if the LX and the GX, especially if the GX is a lower price vehicle, if the GX had a slightly longer wheelbase with larger cargo capacity, it would be unstoppable in terms of sales, assuming they could build enough. But yeah, Toyota, I mean, it's just crazy what we're seeing here with a lot of their models. The demand for Toyota and a lot of Lexus models, not all of them, but it is just mind-blowing how they're outpacing the industry. They're already the number one retail brand in America, meaning they sell the most to customers, and they do sell fleet, but not as much as like GM or Ford, for example. So like if we look at the big gains this month, all right, well, Prius is back. All the Lexus sedans seem to be dying besides the IS. It's just crazy. The RAV4, even though it's the best-selling vehicle in America, I think it's beating the trucks at this point. It's just insane. Grand Highlander crushing it. 4Runner crushing it. Sequoia doing well. Land Cruiser in the dumps. GX in the dumps. Sienna, it could be crushing it a lot more. Tacoma, absolutely crushing it. I don't understand what's happening with the Tacoma right now, but it's on another level of record-breaking pace. And then the Lexus crossovers are slowing down besides essentially the Grand Highlander's fancier brother, the TX. And the LX is doing okay, but that's very niche. But the TX is kind of pulling Lexus right now. The NX holding its own, but everything else kind of down. So the TX is pulling the Lexus crossovers. The GX could absolutely be doing it as well if there wasn't some sort of production snag that we're seeing. So Toyota's printing that money. The demand for their vehicles is through the roof. Of course, some more than the others. Like if you're looking to get a good deal on a Toyota right now, it's the sedans. The Corolla you can get for cheap prices. The Camry, which is the best buy out of them all of them, you can get some pretty cheap prices. The outgoing current design of the RAV4 you can get good deals on right now, but pretty much everything else is going to be, and I bet you can get good deals on the Tacoma. Seeing these sort of sales on the Tacoma to me says that Toyota is wheeling and dealing on these trucks, I should say, and you're going to be able to good deal. Same thing with the Tundra. I bet you can get some good deals on it. Sienna, forget about getting a good deal on it. You're going to be paying sticker at the minimum. 4Runner, you can get a good deal on, I guarantee it. Grand Highlander, nope. Good luck. Good luck even getting a hybrid on that. You should be able to get good deals on the Lexus sedans right now. And the Lexus crossovers, probably not a good deal, especially on the RX hybrids. You're not going to get a good deal on the TXs or the GXs. LX, it doesn't matter because you have so much money at that point. It doesn't matter what kind of deal you get. NX, you should be able to get a decent deal. And UX, if you want that compromised vehicle, you should be able to get a good deal on it as well. I mean, Lexus dealers can't get rid of the UX. I mean, it's been like that since that vehicle launched and when I was working for Lexus in 2018. So anyways, stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed. I will be driving the new RAV4 later this year. I will be also giving you guys monthly updates going forward. I've included in Toyota's monthly sales updates. And this is just, you know, peak nerdiness for me. This is as good to me as a brand new reveal of like a new Toyota. I just love going over sales volume, seeing what vehicles are hot, see which ones are breaking the market, see which ones you can't even find, like something like a Sienna. I haven't even pulled up the Sienna on the list though, but I'm curious now. Even though Toyota's increased production capacity 70% on the Sienna, good luck finding one. The all hybrid Sienna, here we go, 55. And how many of these are probably pre-sold? Look, this was the only one I've seen so far that actually has a picture of it, and that's actually a great deal if you can get it. At least the 2013 floating in the database somewhere, but if you can get them for the low 40s, great deal on a Sienna LE. I know it's cloth and you could stain it, but just put seat covers on it if you're that worried about staining it. And yeah, like the Sienna is great. If you can get one at MSRP. So good luck on that. You can see most of the trim levels here. Just no platinums, no limiteds, some XLEs, one XSE, and then a few LEs. It's just, there's just none out there. The nearest location to me is up in Fort Myers. That means my local dealer has absolutely zero at Germain Toyota of Naples here. So that's bonkers. They're just vaporware. All right. I'll see you guys in the comments. Have a great day and peace.